The trouble with fighting for human freedom is that one spends most of one's time defending scoundrels, for it is against scoundrels that oppressive laws are first aimed, and oppression must be stopped at the beginning if it is to be stopped at all. H.L. Mencken. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you. Thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right. Today, I constantly just push the boundaries. um, you know, technology, topics, whatever the case is, I'm always just looking and saying, oh, I should talk about this. And then when I talk about this, when I start putting together my show notes and I get ready to go live, I'm like, man, how are people going to react to this? They going to be upset at me? Today, I'm going to defend somebody that maybe you think that I ought not be defending. So let's dive right in. We're going to talk about Hasan Piker. You might not know who he is. I'm not terribly familiar with him. And so when I say defend him or stand with him or anything along that line, we're talking about in this narrow context of this particular event. So let's see what this event was and we will dig into it. So get things up on the screen here like they're supposed to be. Let's see, where are you? Seem to not want to be cooperating. How about we do that? There it is. Bam. All right, so there we go. Pro streamer. Why does it got? Why is that highlighted? This is all right. Pro Gaza streamer says he was detained at U.S. airport. All right. So popular streamer Hasan Piker claims he was detained for hours by U.S. airport officials over his political views. The influencer, who has more than 6 million followers across Twitch. Look, can I just say that sounds too high? Anyway, Instagram, TikTok, and X says he was held when he returned to Chicago from France. Mr. Piker, who is known for his pro-Gaza stance and criticism of Donald Trump, says he was quizzed on his views about the Middle East and the president and accused the U.S. government of attempting to silence opposition voices with intimidation. Officials rejected suggestions Mr. Piker had been targeted over his beliefs during the, quote, Routine and lawful inspection. Well, there you have it. It's routine and lawful. Case closed. We can go on about our way. The government investigated itself, and guess what? They found no wrongdoing. Not a very warm welcome. Mr. Piker first posted on Sunday telling followers he had been stopped by Customs and Border Protection at Chicago O'Hare's International Airport. On Monday, the U.S. born streamer told followers, quote, "It was an insane situation. It's very obvious that they knew exactly who I was. It's very obvious that they knew how to navigate the conversation, and it was a really interesting conversation that took place. It was very cordial. I thought it was strange how cordial it was." But U.S. government official Tricia McLaughlin accused Mr. Piker of, quote, lying for likes. Well, nobody would do that on the internet, right? Nobody's just trying to get likes out there. In a post on X, she said the routine inspection could have happened to anyone traveling. Huh. No big deal, right? Could happen to anybody. Like, dude, what? You're not special. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's all that special, but we'll get into it. Claims that his political beliefs triggered the inspection are baseless, she wrote. Once his inspection was complete, he was promptly released. Ah, well, no big deal, right? Like, hey, look, we stopped you. We asked what we needed to ask, and then we let you go. What are you complaining about? I was about to say something else. What are you complaining about, Mr. Piker? In a further statement, CBP said our officers are following the law, not agendas. Hmm. Just following the law. Where have I heard that before? Cricket, cricket. I should have a cricket sound. I think I do have a cricket sound. Let me see. I'm pretty sure I have one. That's right. I think it's this one right here. I need to have that more at the ready. I need to have it more at the ready. I'll work on that. I'll get it more at the ready so I don't have to like do the automatopoeia. Is that how you say it? I think it's how you say it. You know, where you make the sound yourself with your voice. I think somebody mentioned it in the chat the other day. They were like, what was the name? They said the name, it was the guy from Police Academy, and at first I didn't recognize his name, and his name sounded like something or somebody else, and I got it confused, and then once somebody in the chat pointed it out, I was like, "Oh, yeah." The guy that's like, in the microphones and, could make all the cool sounds with his mouth. Like, if I get myself more prepared, I won't have to do that. Anyway, let's continue on. Uh, Mr. Piker questioned this response, inquiring why he was asked about his views on Donald Trump, Israel, Houthi rebels, Hamas, and his bans from Twitch. I don't know. Why would they ask you about that if they did? Mr. Piker accused the government of attempting to create an environment, quote, an environment of fear, end quote, in an effort to silence critics. No. Come on now. Would government ever do that? Come on. Like, who really believes that? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you really believe that. Okay. Anyway, his experience follows the detention of student protesters Mahmoud Khalil and I cannot say this name by U.S. immigration officials. Both were taken into custody after expressing pro-Palestine views as part of what the White House has called a crackdown on anti-Semitism on U.S. college campuses. Opponents have accused the government of attempts to suppress free speech, and Mr. Khalil's lawyers have rejected claims he was promoting anti-Semitism. The White House has said it is, quote, committed to the enforcement of our immigration laws and will take swift action to remove aliens who pose serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States. Hmm. So it almost sounds like what the White House is saying kind of confirms what Mr. Piker is claiming. Maybe not confirming directly like his particular experience, but at least a similar experience. Right, because he's claiming that, "Hey, the government stopped me and they asked me about my views, and then they finally let me go." Then Trisha, she's like, "Yeah, that happened, but they let him go." The Border Patrol, they were like, "We're just following the law." The government's like, "Hey, we're gonna take steps to remove people who pose a serious adverse foreign policy consequence." I don't even know what that means. That's just a bunch of gibberish that they could use to collect anybody. They could stop me. I doubt they know who I am. I don't have 6 million followers yet. And if I did, again, probably way too high. And I'm gonna get in trouble for that joke. I should stop it, but I'm not gonna stop it. Yes, Winslow, Michael Winslow. Thank you so much. Um, so I gotta stop with the jokes. Like I should go back to just dumb dad jokes. Or what I do sometimes on Facebook. If you catch me on Facebook, be careful because I like to troll people. So on Facebook, on Facebook, I'm going to take a little detour here. On Facebook, I like to troll people, and I will get on there and I will make deadpan jokes. And I get in trouble sometimes because, like, on Facebook, I have a lot of friends, and I try to dial down the politics a little bit, just because not all my friends want to talk about politics, and sometimes, like, I've actually lost friends over some political things, and I try not friends that are not talking so like a whole lot in the political space. I mean, I've lost friends that are friends in other spaces and friends in political spaces, and I get that's just the way life goes. But um, I've dialed it back so that the people who are more interested in, like, say, my family life and cool things that I'm doing, you know, what's my son up to, those kind of things. For friends like that, I try to focus a little bit, I keep it balanced, but then I'll just poke a little bit and just have fun trolling people on Facebook. And then when I go to Twitter, that's where you get all my, like, more serious political commentary. And so I don't really hold back a whole lot there. So just be careful if you ever catch me on Facebook because I may be playing internet deadpan and I'll say something just for the fun of it. And sometimes it gets people, sometimes it gets ignored. Sometimes I get in trouble because people, like, I did something like that the other day, and to a friend, and then, like, a whole bunch of people just, like, swarmed me, and I was like, "Look, folks, it was just a joke. I was just making a joke." And and then that person came by and he, like, responded to, like, everybody, and he was like, "D, I was just making a joke, guys. It's cool. It's cool." So anyway, okay. So, but back to the story here. All right. So from what I can tell, it sounds like the government is kind of supporting, at least in theory, that this story might have happened. What I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that the overall story itself happened. Why? Because a lot of people have been stopped by DHS or whomever, TSA. A lot of people have had screenings. I've had private screenings myself. Like, I've been pulled aside into a room, and I'm like, "Why you got me in here?" And their answers were gibberish. I don't remember what it was now, but they where was I? Was it was it here in Jacksonville? I can't remember where. But they pulled me aside. They're like, "Sir, we're gonna have to take you to a private screening." And I was like, "Okay." I think what happened was when I go through the airport, I absolutely refuse to go through the scanner, and so I'll always opt out. And the reason I opt out, and we'll get into it more a little bit later in this show, is that this is security theater. Okay, we're not actually helping prevent terrorist attacks. And so for me, I look at it and I say, you're spending a whole lot of money, and you're annoying the hell out of us travelers for nothing. And so my way of pushing back is to just not go through the scanner. And if more people would do this, then we might be able to send a message to the government. Hey, get rid of this stuff. Let us go back to before 9/11. Maybe you could keep some things. Maybe you could say, like, look, if you're not a traveler, you have no business going to, to the to your gate, to the gate that your family or friends are flying out from, right? Maybe you could do that, right? You just limit some things, but for the most part, we should go back, or maybe all of it, right? Like, we could have that debate, but I think a lot of what we do right now is just theater, and too many people just go along, and so here it stays, here it remains. We have TSA now for what, over 20 years, because we don't push back. So this is my way of pushing back. So Um, I will always, and my wife is not libertarian, and so she doesn't really care. She's like, whatever. And so it's easier now that we have a kid because I just take my son, and then it's super easy. I just grab my son because they don't make kids go through it. So we just go through the regular boring old metal detector. But then sometimes I'll get flagged to be screened. And, or they'll do the pat down. I think they always do the pat down. Sometimes they will let me think. I'm trying to think about this. I don't fly that often. So I'm trying to remember exactly the process because I know that sometimes it's a little different. But anyway, what happens is I go through, I get the pat down. They take that little stick and they put like a little cloth on it and they rub it over and then they put it in the little scanner. And I guess they're looking for explosive materials or weed or I don't know what they're looking for exactly. And one day it beeped. And so they're like, sir, we're going to take you back here and do a private screening. They literally did the exact same thing. And so I asked them, I was like, what's different about this? And they gave me some gibberish answer. And I was like, okay. And then they let me go, like, whatever. So the idea that people are stopped and asked questions is not untrue, right? Like it happens. It's happened to me. We were flying back from Indonesia and we went through customs. And I was like, when I fly, like, it's very difficult for me to sleep, even though I'm a tiny little guy and you would think, oh, wow, those seats fit you very well. They're still uncomfortable. They're like garbage seats. And so we flew back from Indonesia and it was like a 20 some hour flight or maybe 18 or something. I don't know, but it was up there. It's almost a full day of flying. And so I don't sleep very well. So I'm like bleary eyed. I come in and, I'm awake and cognitively available enough that I could say, I refuse to go through your scanner. And so then they asked me, they were like, why they were just it was just a casual question. Like they weren't interrogating me. They were just like, so can I ask you why you don't want to go through that? And I'm too tired to really argue with them. So I'm just like, well, I just mumble something about security, privacy, or something like that. And then they like try to like convince me. They're like, well, sir, we just want you to know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And then like, so I've had these experiences that are similar. They're not as dramatic as Piker's. And speaking of, let's hear what he had to say about it. So this is his video. This is Hasan Piker describing his experience.
For those of you who don't know, I was detained by Customs and Border Patrol inside of the O'Hare Airport. I get to the global entry line and they're processing everybody expeditiously. Gets to me, take a photo, boom, walk in. Instantly, the Customs and Border Patrol agent goes, "Step aside, sir. An agent will come and take you to another location." I was like, is that proper protocol? It's like, sometimes it happens. There's a detention area.
Okay, so far, I really don't disagree with this. Like this experience is kind of what I've observed or similar to, or similar to what I've experienced, right? Like they just kind of go through this routine. They flag you for whatever reason. Maybe you're the 20th customer and instead of getting, a, a, a free cookie or something, they're like, all right, you get a free pat down.
I'm sitting there. There's like a bunch of terrified families. There's an old lady in a wheelchair. Finally, this agent comes out. They take me to this back room and we got to talking. And let me tell you, folks, the TikTokers that talked about being detained, they were right. It was an insane situation. So it's very obvious that they knew exactly who the I was.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. I'm on the internet way too much. And I would have trouble picking out Hasan Piker because one, I don't watch him on a regular. Okay. And so I would not like, I'm familiar with who he is, but I don't know him that well. Right. I would have trouble picking him out of a sea of people. So this part I do disagree. I don't know. Like, I hate when people say this. They're like, it's very obvious. Okay. Well, what was so obvious about it? What, they just picked you out and you don't think they should have picked you out? That's not very obvious. So there are some elements of his story that I question, but the overall story I believe. So I just want to point out, like, in my defense, somewhat of Hasan Piker, it's not a full throated defense. I don't defend everything that he's saying. I probably would disagree with him on a lot of his positions. If he's pro Palestine, for starters, I am not per se pro Palestine. I'm pro not killing innocent people. And so from what I see is Israel's got a heavy hand over there when it comes to their military response. That's my issue. I don't have this particular Palestinians can have this, Israelis have to, I don't get into that. That would require way more work than I care about. I care about America. Okay. I also care about innocent lives and I care about what America supports. I do not support killing innocent people in mass numbers. I don't support killing innocent people in small numbers, but mass numbers makes it even worse. So, just for the record, I partially support him. I have some elements of disagreement, but I don't think that takes away from the overall story and the point that I'm going to make in this episode.
It's very obvious that they knew how to like navigate the conversation. You know, he's like, "Oh, what are you doing in Chicago?" And I was very revealing. I was like, "I want to take my family out for Mother's Day to France, but I had to come back early from France because I have a speaking engagement at University of Chicago." And he was like, "Oh, what kind of speaking engagement?" It's like, "I don't know, some like journalism school stuff." And he's like, "Oh, well, since you mentioned that, what do you do as a job?" And I was like, "I'm a Twitch streamer." And he's like, "Well, since you mentioned that, what kind of things do you stream about?" So I was
Okay. So, let's pause this for a second. A moment ago, he said it's very obvious they knew who I was because they picked him out. But now his own account is saying like, "Oh, they're navigating this conversation." They're not really navigating it in some clever way. They're just asking questions. These are like normal follow-up questions that any half intelligent person would ask, right? If you stop somebody and you're like, "Where are you going?" "I'm going here." "Oh, okay." "What?" "I'm going to the Chicago to college in Chicago to speak." "Oh." What would the next normal question be? What are you speaking about? Who are you? What do you do? Right? That's a normal question. This is not navigating. There's no cleverness here. Now, maybe they've been trained to ask specific questions, and that's fine. But I don't think there's anything clever going on here. He's making it out like this is something more than out of the ordinary conversation. And I think this is normal conversation for this particular event. You stop somebody, you're checking to see who they are, you ask them questions about who they are and what they're doing. Like I could do this without any training. I don't need to be trained. I could do the same thing. So, and all I'm doing is I'm not trying to like all I'm trying to do is just kind of dial it down so that we can talk about the reality of this situation that many people face. We're using Hasan as more of a stand-in, also because you know a lot of people like me who really support liberty would probably disagree with him on many things, presumably, right? Just based on what little bit that I know of him. So we want to be objective here, and being objective means that okay, I believe maybe the whole story in general, but I disagree with some elements and, whatever, right? Like that's how you be objective. So,
It's just like I play video games, but I also do current events sometimes. And he's like, "Since you mentioned that, do you talk about the news?" And I was like, "Yeah, I talk about the news." "So when you talk about the news, do you talk about the war?" And I was like, "What do you mean by that?" He's like, "Do you talk about Trump?" And that was the first time where I was like, "What the is this question?" Like I literally straight up told him, I was like, "Why are you asking me this?"
okay. So you seem like a smart guy, Hassan. And it isn't until they ask you about Trump that you suddenly are like, wait a minute, why are you asking me all these questions? It should have been clear at the very beginning. Right. Now, it's cool if you want to play along. Like I would, not in legal terms, I'm not giving legal advice, but I would normally tell people, shut up. And he addresses that in just a moment. I would normally tell people, don't answer any questions, right? Answer or if you're going to answer questions, be like that person who is very difficult to get anything out of. They give you like one word answers. They're the kind of person that a lawyer would hate on the lawyer on the witness stand, right? They're trying to interrogate them and they're trying to cross examine them, and they're like, "So, what were you doing on Friday?" And they're like, "I went out," right? And they're like, "Okay, where did you go?" "The store." "What store did you like?" If you're going to answer any questions, again, like you shouldn't, but if you are, that kind of response is appropriate, right? Because what they're trying to do is get as much information out of you as possible to find out if you're somebody that they should detain longer. This is why you should not ask questions. Again, not legal advice. But if you do answer questions, make it difficult for them to ascertain anything. so that if you end up in court and they're like, well, we could tell by his answers that he was probably hiding something or he was this or that, whatever. Then you make it difficult for them to defend that in court. Like they asked me where I was going. I said Chicago. That's it. That doesn't tell you much. That gives you no inference to work with whatsoever. But if you're like, if you're just blah, telling them everything, well, then they have a lot. There's a video. I'm not going to play it. There's a video of it's an old video, and a lot of people have seen it. If you have not seen it, go look it up. I don't remember the title of the video, but you can just type in like, um, "Don't talk to the police lawyer," and and it's a law professor, I believe, and he goes. It's like a 40-minute speech, and he's talking to. I think he's talking to his first year law students, and he's talking about like he walks through why it's a bad idea to talk to the police. Because even if you're trying to be cooperative and a good person, like, just a good, like I'm not trying to cause trouble, he points out how that can work against you. So go watch that, check it out. Anyway, let's continuing. So Hasan clearly does not understand why they would be asking him questions after he's already been detained, after they start, asking very normal questions. And then finally, when they get to Trump, now he's like, wait a minute, why are you asking me this?
Like, what does this have to do with anything? None of these questions are actually valid questions to ask. But I was entertaining it because, one, I didn't want to present it as being difficult because I didn't want to extend the tension. And two,
Okay. That is the almost always the reason that people give when they talk. Almost, they're like, I don't want to be difficult. But guess what? You're not really being difficult if you just refuse to answer. Now, if you're belligerent, that's a different story. If the police pull you over, because you were speeding or maybe they thought they whatever, for whatever reason, they pull you over and they start asking you a bunch of questions and you're like, "Look, officer, I don't answer any questions. Am I being detained? And I would like to speak to a lawyer." That's about the end of the conversation, right? Again, not legal advice, just repeating what I've heard from people who give legal advice. Same thing if you're stopped by DHS, shut up. And you're not being difficult if you're just polite and you're like, look, I don't answer questions. My lawyer has advised me to not answer any questions without their presence. Plain and simple, right? Give them the information based on your state. You should probably go look it up. Some states do require that you identify yourself. Some states do not, I believe. So go check that out. Give the bare information that you're required by law to give. That way you don't get in trouble. And otherwise, shut up. Now, he doesn't, and he explains why. Okay, fine.
I actually wanted to see how far I could take it. And I'm glad I did this because the reality of the matter is I'm profoundly privileged. I'm a public person. I have enough money to be able to fight back against this sort of thing. And they know who the I am. So obviously, the reason for why they're doing that is, I think, to try to create an environment of fear, to try to get people like myself, or at least like others that would be in my shoes that don't have that same level of security, to shut the up. And I'm going to use the privilege that I have in that moment to try and see what the they're doing. Every single thing that they ask me is literally not allowed. Like, what the do you mean? Why is this denying me entry into the country of my birth? You can't just stop me at the border and be like, what's your opinion on Donald Trump? You're not allowed to enter the nation.
All right. So I agree with him. I think that these are inappropriate questions to ask, right? If they don't actually have some thing to work with, like, hey, we saw you doing something that was extremely suspicious. But even then, shut up, right? So as far as his second point, I kind of agree. If you're somebody who has the resources to be able to fight the government, then it might be worthwhile. You have to make a decision. It might be worthwhile for you to do that. I did this in COVID, right? When we, if you remember, during COVID, there was a time when people were like worried that companies might start mandating getting the COVID vaccine. And I was like, to hell with that. And so I told my wife, I said, look, I am not going to take the vaccine if they try to mandate it. And I will be fired before I take it. And I encouraged people online. I said, "Look, if you're in a position to be able to fight back, you should." I get it. Not everybody is. And I'm not going to be the guy that runs around and acts like we're all the same. We're not all the same. We do not all have the same resources to fight back and fight back against an entity that has a lot of resources because they steal 'em from us, right? Taxation is theft. Always a good time to put to plug that. So, I kind of agree. Like, if you're a public person, if you have a certain level of wealth, if you're in a position where you could fight back, that would be the time to do it. Whatever, when you see that government is overreaching. So I agree. Now, what brought this to my attention was I was just kind of scrolling through and I saw this, and then I started thinking about the Patriot Act, which we're going to talk about a little bit after the intermission here. I started thinking about that. I did the bill review on Representative Anna Luna, who has submitted a bill to basically invalidate the Patriot Act in full, right? So, how do we fight back against these kind of things? Well, people like Hassan, people like me, when it's appropriate, when we're prepared to do so, this is our opportunity to fight back. So I saw it. So how how did this turn out? Like, after he posted this, after the word got out, how did this play out? Well, Trisha McLaughlin said that he was lying for likes. So let's take a look at some stuff here. Where are my images? All right. Let's see here. And so here, I'll actually I'll post these. All right. So this is from the People's City Council. We'll get to who they are in a second. If you watch this clip, see how they continue to follow up and ask more questions with every piece of new info learned. They are gathering info to use against you. This is not an approach that you should take if detained by Border Patrol or any cops. STFU, shut the F up. They are correct. So, as a rule of thumb, you should not do what Hassan did unless you are prepared to deal with the consequences. And they could be very difficult consequences for you. All right. Now, this particular organization, they are some sort of socialist, communist group. I don't even know. It says they're abolitionist, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, collective amplifying voice of the people. So basically, these are people for which, on politics, I would normally disagree with. Hassan is, this group is. So it's like, well, DL, why are you supporting them? Well, here's what Trisha McLaughlin said. We're going to talk about who she is in a minute. So she comments on his post, and she said, "Lying for likes. Claims that his political beliefs triggered the inspection are baseless." Okay, are they? We don't know that. What evidence has she presented to that claim? Now, he's making claims that they knew him, and I doubt that. I don't think that they know him. But I also look at Trisha and I say, I don't know. I can't feel confident in this. Why? Because you're literally trying to deport green card holders for their political speech. So this is already happening. So I kind of can't trust you. Our CBP officers are following the law, not agendas. True, probably. It's probably true that the officers are just doing what they're told. That represents the problem. Like, I don't, that meme where it's like, you know how this is worse, right? That's actually worse. That would be fitting right here, where she's like, they're just following the law, because that would suggest that we have a problem with what? The law. We have a problem with the law. We have bad laws. So, upon entering the country, this individual was referred for further inspection, a routine lawful process that occurs daily and can apply for any traveler. Once his inspection was complete, he was promptly released. She is not making this any better by any stretch of the imagination, because she is literally saying, like, hey, they didn't do it because of who he was. They just did it because that's what we do. Oh, okay. Well, guess what, Trisha? I don't like any part of his story. Like, the fact that it happened, the fact that you stopped him and you asked him all these questions. Why? Why did you? Okay, you did it randomly. Did you think he was just going to fess up and be like, well, I'm actually here on a student visa and I support terrorism. In fact, I'm a really big, I better be careful how I say this so it doesn't get clipped. If that person had said they were a Hamas supporter, right? Like, is that really going to happen? No, it's not. Which means you are randomly grabbing people, stopping them, detaining them, asking them a bunch of questions. You are literally doing exactly what he said. You are creating a culture of intimidation. Because if you don't have any evidence that somebody has committed a crime or is about to commit a crime, you have no business stopping people who are doing routine, lawful things that occur daily. People go to the airport, they fly, they talk about politics. They agree and disagree with Donald Trump or any president or any Congress member or any representative on a routine daily basis, and it's lawful. Yet, our laws, as you said, Trisha, allow the government to detain travelers on a routine, lawful basis for doing things that are routine and lawful. You see the problem here, Trisha? Because if you don't, perhaps you were dropped on your head, or you're just an authoritarian. Maybe both. All right. Uh, what else here? So I've caught Trisha lying in the past, in my opinion. So here's this, and we're not going to dive into it. But I said, Trisha, Ohio, another liar. He's a Maryland man, having lived in Maryland since 2011. This is Abrego Garcia, who I've criticized the government for the way that they handled it. I'm not criticizing them so much for deporting him, but the way they handled it and where they deported him. And she was one of the first people that I saw come out and say, this is not a Maryland man. And I was like, wait a minute, he's not. The man's lived there since 2011. At what point? At what point does he become a Maryland man? And then she made claims about him trafficking, and I was like, okay, where's the evidence for that? You can't just come out and make claims. She claimed that the courts ruled him MS-13. That's not true. They deferred to conflicting I-213 and GFIS claims, and then he was labeled a New York gang member despite only living in Maryland. And the gang that they said that he was a part of operated primarily in New York, which he's never been to. So I was like, Trisha fails the smell test. She doesn't deserve any respect. And then I just because I was being spunky, I said also mid. I don't really care if she's attractive or not. So now who is Trisha? You might be asking, like, who is Trisha for Ohio? Well, as it turns out, she is somebody. She is somebody quite important. Let's take a look. Well, look at that. Trisha, let me zoom in on this a little bit. Can I see? Yeah. She is the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs for Homeland Security. Oh, she's part of the Ministry of Truth. She's part of the propaganda team. That's who she is. An Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia McLaughlin, oversees the Department of Homeland Security's public outreach, including its media, digital, strategic, and crisis communication efforts, and serves as the principal advisor to Secretary Nome on all external and internal communications. So, yeah, her job is to go out publicly and basically make Homeland Security look good, make the government look good. That's what her job is, right? Now, you could argue and say, like, her job is to make them look good. Hasan Piker's job is to make them look bad. And the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I would agree with that. Okay. But let's be clear about who she is, right? And she is there to make them look good. Now, how, let's go back to Piker because she's right. This is routine. Okay. Like, she is correct on that. But I think that represents part of the problem. So let's take a look and let's just see. Let's see here. Where's my do I got that? Oh, you know what? I put it in a different one. Oh, I put it somewhere else. That's okay. We just won't have the cool music, or maybe we will. Maybe I can get that in there. Give me a second. Like, just give me a second. I'm gonna put this in here. So we're gonna do. Where are we here? Media source, and then we're gonna add existing. Boom. All right. So that should hopefully. All right. Ready? let's let's see how people responded to Hasan Piker. All right. So I'm gonna put this over here. I'm gonna move some screens around. Give me a second. There's like a lot of screens that I gotta operate here. All right. Are you surprised with your name in this administration? Well, that was completely preventable on your part, wasn't it? Oh, I love these kind of comments. You know, the ones that are like, "Oh, you didn't have to happen to you. You just need to shut up." No, not in America you don't. That's not how freedom of speech works. Customs Border Patrol is out of control. This will scare away tourism so fast. You know, actually, that's kind of true. There was a story of some German girls who um, went to Hawaii, and they had a poor experience. And like a lot of people were defending it. And I was like, wait a minute, this sounds bad. Like they're from Germany, and the problem was they were some young girls like college age, and they wanted to go to Hawaii and just kind of freely, like they didn't have an itinerary set up. They were like, we're just gonna. It was almost like they're gonna backpack across Europe, but instead they're just gonna go to Hawaii and just do whatever. And the government was like, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, don't you have an itinerary? And they're like, no. And they're like, you need one. And they I think they actually ended up getting sent back. So yeah, this person is actually this is actually true. Breaking. Hassan, the first ever person to be questioned at Border Patrol, now demands your attention and super chats for this traumatic experience. Hmm. So you think this is okay that the government stops people randomly for doing things that are routine and lawful so they can ask them questions that might get them in trouble that are also, quote, routine and lawful? You think this is good there, Vince? Because I don't. Every sane nation does this. Nothing strange about it. It's called protecting the country. But lefties wouldn't know nothing about that. I bet they would know a little bit about grammar, wouldn't they, Tariq? Wouldn't know nothing about that. I don't usually criticize people for grammar because, you know, social media, whatever, and I make some of my own, but that one's pretty bad. Maybe you should stop posting for a while. Been pulled into secondary screening many times, and O'Hare CBP had the most involved in specific questions about Gaza for me by far. Glad to see you got out of there without having to give up your devices. Right? This is like other people are confirming this. I've been stopped too. No jig deal. I think they meant big. B and J on the keyboard are not that close, but okay, we'll go with it. If you have nothing to hide. Huh. If you have nothing to hide. Interesting. Hassan makes a big deal about getting stopped at the airport. Clear attention seeking, many people get stopped. Okay, Jack, just because it happens to many people doesn't mean it's no big deal. In fact, I would argue that it is a big deal that it's happening to many people because it's happening unnecessarily. And it does create a culture of fear. Like people should not fear their government, you dummy. Let's see. Awesome. I finally feel at ease about how my tax money is being spent. I would pay money from my savings to make this happen. Well, well, well. I kind of like hearing this because that means you can stop taxing me and you can pay for it. And if they can't afford it because you're not paying enough, then I guess it goes belly up. Whatever. So I kind of am on board with this. Millions stopped daily. When it happened to him, he acts like it's some big deal. Yes, it is a big deal, dummy. Just because, again, it happens to millions of people. You know what else happened to millions of people and was a big deal? Atomic bombs. That happened to millions of people. Millions of people have been slaughtered by their government. Millions of people, happening to millions of people is not an argument. Many things historically have happened to millions of people and were very, very immoral. Where do these people come from? That definitely didn't happen. It definitely did. Even the government agreed to it. Very strange. The consequences of my actions. In America, you are allowed to have public opinions about the government, and you are not supposed to be punished for it. You should not be stopped because of your opinions. You should be stopped if police or law enforcement have credible information that you have committed a crime or you are going to commit a crime. That is it. There should be no other reason they stop you. They shouldn't stop you because you're brown. They shouldn't stop you because, it's dark out. What was that story the other day I saw? A guy was walking with his 5-year-old at 5 a.m. It looked like he was in an alley. I don't remember where. And the police stopped him and they're like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm walking with my son. We do this every morning. And then it just kept escalating. And from what I saw, the guy was like, he was exercising his rights. He was not being, overly defensive. He was not causing a problem. The officers at the point when they said, what are you doing? And he said, my son and I, and his son, his 5-year-old is right there. He's like, my son and I are walking. We do this all the time before school. That should have been the end of the conversation. The police should have been like, have a good day, sir. But no, they continued to escalate it and ended up body slamming the guy and arresting him. The 5-year-old's crying. And I think they got away with it. So, no, I don't buy this whole consequences of my actions, because a lot of times the actions, there should be no consequences for. You have the right to walk every bit as much as you have the right to criticize your government. It's literally the whole point of America. And if you don't understand that point, maybe you should self-deport. Maybe we don't need you because you don't understand freedom. Maybe if you stop cosplaying as someone who supports terrorists, you wouldn't get stopped for the stupid crap you've said. Just maybe. So again, he has the right to support even Hamas. I think it's stupid, right? And I would argue I would criticize him for it. But if you want to sit here in America and just be like, yeah, Hamas is great, fine. You can say that, but that doesn't mean that the government gets to come after you. Can they investigate and say, all right, is this person doing more than just saying it? Sure, fine. But they have no right to just stop you randomly. But again, I don't think they stopped him because they knew who he was. I think it was actually pretty random. Let's see. LOL, every country does this. See what I mean? Like, a lot of people just get used to it. And we're going to address that in a minute. Cool, bye-bye. Bye-bye where? Where is he supposed to go? He's an American citizen. Poor baby. I can't with these people. I really can't. We got one more, I think. Go suck a bag of D's. I was retired military. What is it with people and their inability to construct a sentence that makes sense? Like well, I just ruled that out for me criticizing. I was retired military. No, I am retired military. Like, did you stop being retired military at some point? Are you now back in the military? Anyway, sorry, I'm nitpicking because I'm annoyed. Traveling on DOD orders for my job in Iraq, had a security clearance, was detained for 6 hours and held with dirtbags like you twice. And you should be angry about it, dummy. Why aren't you angry about this? Oh my God, people. These people drive me crazy. All right. So now you know how the attitude, and I think the attitude is because a lot of people look at it and they go, oh, it's Hasan Piker. It's a guy that I don't like. So therefore, whatever. I'm just going to ignore it. That's part of the problem. That's why you get what you get from your government. Let's take some comments from the live chat. We'll go to intermission. And then what we'll do is we'll come back. I'm going to wrap this up by kind of telling you why this is a problem and why we should kind of, at least in part, support people like Hasan Piker. So let's get to some comments here. Let's see what we've got. I got a fair amount of comments here. Trent says, I hate Hussein Piker so much. And that's fair. Like, again, I don't know much about him. The little bit that I do know says I would disagree with him a lot. But on this particular issue, when it comes to government, and I'm going to explain why later, we need to learn when to support somebody and when not to, right? You can say, hey, look, I hate Hasan or Hussein Piker all you want. That's cool. Like, that's your freedom. And you're more than welcome to. I support that fully, 100%. We do need to learn, okay, I hate this person, but this time, this moment right here, I'm standing with them because the government was wrong. That's the whole point of this episode. Let's see here. That man supports known terror groups. Shoot, I would detain him too. Again, we should only support detaining somebody if there's credible evidence that they have committed an actual crime or are about to. Supporting terrorists, as vile as that is, if it's only done in word, like through their running their mouth on their own Twitch stream, fine. You can do that. That's the point of America. You have freedom of speech, and the government can't stop you. Now, if you start sending them money, you start doing other things, that's a different story. Right now, you're engaging in actual actions for which, yes, the government can come in and say, all right, are you an actual threat to your fellow Americans? Right? Because Hamas is a terrorist group. And if you are supporting terrorist group through actions, not just words, through actions, then that's cause for concern for your fellow citizens, right? And hopefully people are starting to see the distinction. It's not a distinction without difference. It's a distinction that's very, very important. All right, let's see here. What else we got? Yes, Chris, not Joe, who said Chris Rock narrated a short documentary about not talking to the police. Go look it up. Chris Rock, don't talk to just you type in Chris Rock police. You'll find it hysterical. I love it. Rachel says, I don't like Hasan, but I think it's ridiculous to call him pro-terrorism or anti-Semitic. I cannot speak to that because I don't know enough about him. Is he pro-terrorist? I don't know. And I'm not speaking about any support that I'm giving him right now on this episode is explicitly only related to this incident. Anything else he said, I might disagree with vehemently, and I might say he's a moron, right? Like I don't know because I don't pay attention to him. Let's see here. He said it himself on a stream. I don't know what he said himself exactly, but maybe. Let's see. Hasan Piker is scared of the Candyman. Okay, fellow old. I remember that movie. I didn't watch it, but I remember the movie. Candyman. Somebody's showing their age here. Or maybe there's a newer reference and I'm still old and just don't know it. Let's see what else we got. I'm going to skip through. There's a lot of comments on here. I must have triggered something here by saying his name. Like, let's see here. Considering Hasan is a natural born citizen as well, born in New Jersey, how people don't see it can become a problem to them at some point. Correct, Trisha Boo. This is correct. Like, and this is the point of my quote at the very beginning from H.L. Mencken. Like, when you're fighting for human freedom, the first people that you end up fighting for are the scoundrels. And I don't know that he fits the definition of a scoundrel. He might, I don't know. But a lot of times what happens is when we put in a new law that's not a good law, or there's some new, diminishment of human freedom, the scoundrels are the first ones that get hit. And so and it's very difficult because you're like, this is a terrible person and you're forcing me to defend him. Yes. And I will do that. I will in a moment support a very terrible person. Again, not saying he is or isn't, but I will support a very terrible person when I recognize that what's happening to them could equally happen to me. What do I say? I support other people's freedom because I'm supporting my own. That's what I'm doing. I'm supporting theirs now so that mine will be supported later. Let's see what else here. Let's see. Hasan has had terrorist members on his stream and openly supports him. He might. I'm not disagreeing with this. I'm neither confirming nor denying this because I simply don't know. I will only operate on information that I feel like I can defend. Now, if you, whoever you are, can defend that, great. You go right ahead. And I'm not defending, like if he has had terrorists on his show, that's his show and he can defend it. I'm not going to. I would not. Well, I don't want to say that I wouldn't have a terrorist on there. I wouldn't have somebody that I believe is a terrorist. If the government says they're a terrorist, I might have them on because the government or people adjacent to the government have called a lot of people terrorist. Didn't they call Moms for Liberty terrorists because they were showing up at school boards and they were like, oh, these terrorists are out there. They're showing up at school boards to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't have this sexually explicit book accessible to kids. And then they're like, you terrorist. So you see why I have to be careful about, saying, oh, who's calling them a terrorist? How are we defining terrorist in this moment? If it's something that I would define as a terrorist, which I would define Hamas as terrorist, then no, I'm not going to have them on my show. So again, I have to dial back my own opinions on this because I'm ignorant. And it's okay. It's okay to say, hey, I'm ignorant about something. I'm only going to defend this one thing. That's what it means to be America's most objective libertarian. Let's see. I'm skipping through a lot of because there's a lot of comments on here. I don't usually have this many comments. Joe says, I'm for free speech. Absolutely. I am a free speech absolutist. And I talked about that in a prior episode. What I mean by that is as long as it's not a threat or fraudulent, right? Like if it's a credible threat. And I don't mean like if you get online and you say, I hope you die. That's not a threat. It's a vile thing to say, but it's not a threat. You should be able to say that all day, every day. I will support a lot of speech that I will absolutely hate and say, on one hand, you can say that legally. On the other hand, I'm cool with shutting you out of spaces from the public, like the public doing it, not government, public. Let's see what else we got here. I will. Keith says, I will defend your rights, even if I won't defend what you say, even if you won't defend my rights. Brilliant, brilliant, Keith. Even if you won't defend my rights, I see a lot of people get online and they'll go, "I'm not defending that dirtbag. They wouldn't defend me." Again, I defend people because I'm defending myself, my future self, potentially. That's why I defend people, because I actually love liberty. And yes, sometimes that means defending execrable people, like people that are terrible. All right, let's see what else we got. Um, the person he brought onto stream was a Yemeni child that, since he was born, has been experiencing a man-made famine in U.S. imperialism. A few idiots have characterized him as a terrorist. So y'all can debate that because, again, I haven't seen the show. I don't know who it is. I don't know the background. I don't know anything about it. But I will defend the idea that Hasan or anyone can bring anybody on their show, right? And they can have any conversation they want. And if they want to, in word, support terrorism, you're going to hate me for this. I will support their right to do that. I will criticize the hell out of them, though. Like if I saw a video of Hasan saying, "Oh, I think terrorists are great," I might pull up his video and be like, "I think this guy's a moron. He shouldn't have been stopped at Chicago O'Hare for the reasons that he was stopped. That aside, he's an idiot." Right? That's how I would approach it. So hopefully you guys aren't too mad at me, but that's how you defend freedom. We're going to go to break. And then when we come back, I'm going to kind of wrap this up and tell you kind of like bring this all together and why it is that we should support somebody like Hasan, who might be a terrible person. So we will be back in just a moment. Hey, Liberty fam, do me a favor. If you enjoy the show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. By the way, if you want to support the show, head over to libertydad.locals.com and sign up. For $5, you can be part of this show. There, I'll engage supporters of the show. We'll discuss topics that you want me to talk about, response videos that you would like to see, or anything related to the show. And I'll even have a monthly subscribers only episode. By the way, I'm always looking for dads to join me for Dad Talk. That's my series where I invite everyday dads on to talk about what's important to them in the context of being a dad. No argument, no debate, and dads choose the topic. It's my way of raising dad voices. If you're a dad or you know a dad who has something to say, let's get connected. Episodes air live on Friday mornings or Friday evenings, whichever works best for dads. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we're back. Let's wrap this up and let me explain to you why we should support somebody like Hasan, at least in this particular instance, right? You can say he's a terrorist and you can say all these other things and you can say he's a moron. There are plenty of streamers out there. There are plenty of podcasters out there for which I would say they are an absolute idiot or they're a terrible person. And I will hold to that, but I will also defend them when I think it's proper to do so. Why did he get stopped in the first place? And I don't mean like, is there something that he said? Go earlier than that. Why do we have a system in place that stops people at the airport? It is because we have the Patriot Act. And the Patriot Act led to all of these things. Now, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Florida District 13, She has a bill, which I talked about in a previous episode, that would repeal the Patriot Act. That's great. It's episode 504, and I found good bills in Congress. That's that's a weird thing to say. Found good bills in Congress. I mean, am I losing my libertarian cred by saying that? I don't know, but I'll defend it. Go watch that episode. I talk about it. So, in response to her putting that out, I want to show you some of the responses to to when she said, "Hey, I'm going to put out this bill before this bill to repeal the Patriot Act." What are some of the responses that she got? So here you go. All patriots should support the Anti-Patriot Act. Little confusing there. I support this. W, Luna, for win. All surveillance tools are already privatized. I appreciate your taking the initiative and think having this conversation is worthwhile and necessary. However, the reality is it's impossible to walk back the damage already done to privacy without establishing an Internet Bill of Rights. It's a conversation we can have, but I agree, significant damage has been done by the Patriot Act. What else we got? The Patriot Act was never about safety. It was about control. Thank you, Representative Luna, for putting America's freedom above the deep state's power trip. That's exactly what it is. It is a power trip. If you vote to keep the Patriot Act, don't ever pretend you care about the Constitution again. You don't represent the people. You represent the surveillance state. 100% agree. More of this, definitely. The Patriot Act is used to spy on patriots, not terrorists. So let me make a correction here. It's used to spy on people, whether they're patriots or not. This is long overdue. In fact, it is. I applaud Representative Anna Luna for introducing the American Privacy Restoration Act to repeal the Patriot Act and end rogue surveillance. Her bold stand against spying and abuses restores our freedoms. Yes, thank you for pushing this. The Patriot Act is so unconstitutional. Why hasn't this happened already? Good question. And last one, thank you. Repeal the unconstitutional Patriot Act. So for me, I look at it and I say, we need to start repealing some of this legislation that has created intrusions upon the American public. And when I look at things like, hey, I'm going to repeal the Patriot Act, I look and I see a whole bunch of people that are like, hey, this is a good idea. Well, good. If you think that's a good idea, then you should, and you think that it's an intrusion and that all it's done is spying on Americans and causing all these problems, that includes people like Hasan Piker. That's the point of this episode, is to say we need to really push hard on repealing the Patriot Act and any other piece of legislation that has allowed the government to do the things that they do that are an intrusion on Americans. Hasan is an American, whether you like it or not, right? He has the freedom of speech, whether you like it or not. The government has no business stopping him and in basically politely interrogating him unless they, again, have a credible evidence that he has committed a crime or is about to commit a crime, an actual tangible crime. Talking about terrorism, supporting terrorism through word is not a crime, nor should it be. Okay? Maybe a vile thing to do, not disagreeing with that, and we all can criticize him for it, but we have to draw a line in the sand when it comes to government and say, hold up, just because I don't like this person doesn't mean I'm gonna allow you to do things that you might do to me one day. Unacceptable. Now you might say, well, DL, this is kind of new. Maybe at the time we didn't know that the Patriot Act would be so bad. And actually you would be wrong. So here's a video of security expert Bruce Schneer, I think I'm saying his name correctly, from back in 2010. And I want you to hear what he says. This is very interesting. So let's play this video. Boom.
The TSA is what you get when you have an entrenched bureaucracy handling a security problem, right? Their mission, as we all believe, is to prevent airplane terrorism. But their real mission is to keep the TSA viable. Right? They can't be irrelevant. They lose funding, they lose personnel, they might disappear. So everything they do is designed to make them look good and prevent them from looking bad if something happens. So, if you think about what they do, they're always preventing against what happened last time. right? Terrorists use guns and bombs. TSA takes away guns and bombs. The terrorists use box cutters. They take away box cutters and knitting needles. Terrorists put bombs in their shoes. They screen shoes. The terrorists use liquids. They take away liquids. Terrorists put bombs in underwear. They put in full body scanners. The terrorists are going to do something else, right? This is a stupid game and we should stop playing it. But if you think about it, if you're the TSA, you have to play that game. Because if the thing happens again, you are blamed. If something new happens, you can say, it's new. We didn't know about it. But if it's the thing that happened last time, politicians, the people, expect that you will be able to see it. So the TSA is really engaged in a massive public relations campaign to convince all of us that they are relevant. And largely it works. Some of us get pissed off at the TSA, but most people say anything for my security. If they only knew that they're giving up all these things and not getting much security, right, then they'd be annoyed. But most people don't think that far ahead.
He's absolutely correct. And I want to make a couple corrections here. So first and foremost, I said before the break, I said the Patriot Act is why we have like the TSA and all these things. That's actually not correct. The TSA was established by the Aviation and Transport Security Act. It's a different piece of legislation, and it was passed by the 107th Congress and signed into law back in 2001. That was in response to the September 11th attacks, but also the Patriot Act was also in response to the to 9/11 as well. So and I'm kind of lumping them all in together. So I apologize, but we do want to be accurate on the show. Okay. So no, the Patriot Act is not necessarily the reason that we have the TSA. However, the Patriot Act did come about when other legislation that all together was for the same reason, right? We had 9/11 and then we had this flurry of legislation. We're like, all right, we got to create all these things. If we can remove the Patriot Act, then that leads us to a place where we can remove or repeal the Aviation and Transportation Security Act, which created the TSA. So if you don't like the TSA, if you recognize that, like Bruce Schneer said, that this is all just security theater, if you understand that you're giving up a lot to get virtually nothing, if you understand that, then you want to support repealing the Patriot Act. And that will lead to more appetite to repeal other things. But in order to do any of that, Americans have to stand together. And we have to learn when to stand together and when to fight each other. Also, by the way, just as a side note, libertarians who are listening, same thing for the Libertarian Party. Now you know. We have to stand together when it matters. There's a time and a place to argue and fight, criticize each other, tell each other that they're terrible people, yada, 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 all that good stuff. There's a time and a place for that. And maybe this would be the only time that I would actually agree with Hasan Piker. I don't know. I'm not going to go and watch him because I'm just far too busy. I have too many things that I'm trying to do. And he's just not on my list of things that say, hey, prioritize this. If it comes about in the future that I need to, then I will. But for now, I'm leaving it in the most neutral but an objective place possible. I don't know what he's like outside of this particular story, but in this particular story, I support him. And I showed all of those comments because I wanted to contrast the attitudes that a lot of people have when we say, hey, let's repeal the Patriot Act. And a lot of people are like, yeah, we should totally do that. And while they may not be the same people that are criticizing Hasan Piker in the comments, there is this division. And government relies on this division. That's how they get to keep these kind of pieces of legislation. That's how they get to keep intruding on your personal lives through that division. So we need to learn, hey, in this moment, I support this person. Maybe no other moment, but this one for sure. Because government, you are the bad guy. That is the point of this show. That's why I put all this together in the way that I did, so that you could see if you want to get rid of the Patriot Act, it has to be more than just patriots, if you will, right? It has to be more than just the people on the right who have recognized that it's no good. It has to be people on the left, if you will, right? Or team A and team B, if we don't want to use terms left and right? We have to be able to come together and say, this is what we want. You will do this. And then we have to follow through. There have to be consequences. There is now a bill put up that will repeal the Patriot Act. You need to go and find out who your representative in Congress is. You need to reach out to them and say, you damn well better vote yes on this. And if you don't, I will give it to your opponent on Team Blue or Team Red if I have to. Tell them that. Let them, I've told you before, politicians count two things, and they're very good at it. They count money and votes. And if they know they're not going to get votes, they will damn well do what you ask. They will. If they know that getting the votes from the public means that they have to support repealing the Patriot Act, most of them will. So make sure they do. And then if and when we can get the Patriot Act repealed, that means we are in a place now we could potentially look at repealing other things. We could start rolling back this government. Like, look, if you believe that the swamp needs to be drained, if you believe in the deep state, right? If you believe all these things and that government is overreaching and has far too much power, if you believe this stuff, this is your path. Your path is getting together with your fellow Americans and saying, we're going to go and we're going to force government to repeal this stuff and to give us back the freedom that they never should have taken in the first place. That's how you do it. All right, folks, I got to get out of here. But let's take a look at some of the last comments and see what you guys got. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hopefully you found this informative, especially to all the new people that have joined the stream today. Hopefully you're not too angry with me and it made sense. Let's see what else we got in here. Joe says repeal the Unpatriot Act. Absolutely. And I just gave you the path forward. Told you how to do it. Let's see here. Let's see some conversation. Keith says TSA is basically a revenue stream plus more government power. This is true for almost every government agency. You're absolutely correct. Name an agency and I will tell you that I probably want to disband it. Let's see here. God is king. I'm not particularly religious myself, Subaru Andy, but I respect your right and your beliefs. Let's see. Let's see. Time surfing alien. Welcome again. Revenue generating scheme. Totally is. It absolutely is. And last but not least, go hit that thumbs up. Definitely do that for me, folks. Hit the thumbs up. Share this episode. Let other people know you like it. Clip it if you want. Come back later and drop a comment just so that, you know, the systems at play will recognize that my show is getting some attention. So do me that favor, help this show grow, and thank you for watching. But for now, I got to head on out. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.